Development Authority meeting, and starting with quorum, which is what we have, we'll move on to the minutes of the August 9th meeting, 2018. Do we have any comments or questions on that? Then I'm looking for approval.
So moved.
Got a first and a second. Those in favor of passing the minutes for August 9th, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Moving on to bills.
Okay, I can give a summary of the bills. We had some substantial bills there from Flegel Law Firm detailing a couple of land sales that we did. They weren't necessarily, some of them were Hudson related, and I guess most of them were Hudson related actually, and from stretching from 2017 through 2018. And then we also had some bills relating to some other economic development work that was occurring that was non-HEDRA. The proceeds from the sale of that building would pay for those legal fees, the one for the Aspen Dental property. And other than that, that's, I think, most of it.
Did we have any questions for John on the bills? Then looking for approval. Got a first
Got to make a motion for approval.
I'll second that.
and a second. Those in favor of passing the bills as stated, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Item 4, business.
Sure, I'll give an update on our financial advisory services contract. As you may recall, we've been working with Ehlers and Associates for many years as the HRA and later as HEDRA, serving our financial advisory services need, our TIF consulting, other economic development work. The city has been working with a separate firm, Springstead, and so we thought it would be best for the interests of both to work with one financial advisor. We had some situations come up with the Hudson transaction where we had city issues and HEDRA issues and two different parties, and it seemed kind of clunky. And so we went out for a request for proposal in May of this year to have one single entity represent both firms. We ended up with 4 people that responded to it. We interviewed 3 of them, and we're moving forward with the recommended selection of Northland Securities for our financial advisor. So Northland Securities has not represented us in the past. They have represented other clients within the Twin Cities and within Dakota County. We're confident with the checks that we did for people they have worked with, that they would be a good fit for the city. And so what we have in front of you is the contract, which would be for a term of 3 years, and we did have the city council approve the similar contract on September 4th. So the action tonight would be to authorize signature of the agreement.
Sorry, grandchildren. Hello? Hi.
Motion to approve.
Second. And
I'll second it.
a first and a second.
Yeah, I do, sweetie. I'll call you back later.
Aye.
And opposed?
Love you.
Moving on to B.
Okay. Number B here is we're looking at the budget for 2019. As usual, we have set the HRA levy at its maximum amount of 0.0185%. What that means in English is that we would yield approximately $364,000 for HEDRA purposes, which is about $41,000 more than last year. As you recall, the budget that we get from the HRA levy funds much of the activities that we do as HEDRA. There is also funds that come in from the general city budget and also our fund reserves as well. So the action that we have before you is to adopt the HRA levy resolution, setting that levy at 0.0185%. Looking at the budget for 2019, the City Council continues to work through that. In the packet, I had noted a few requests that had been put into the budget, and I give you an update on where I think some of these stand here. And if any of our council members want to chime in, they feel free to do so at any time. From the items that we had on the original request list, the broker tour remains in there. Our Block 1 environmental cleanup, that's the area behind Art Space. Additional loan programs for Vermillion Street and housing rehab, and some branding message development. Those items remain within the budget at present and are moving forward towards the final budget approval, which will happen in December of this year. And so I can stand for any questions on that. The official action, again, is to adopt the resolution for the HRA levy.
Madam Chair? Question, John. I saw in the Hastings paper today that there was a group that was organizing that would like to make a park of that area that's between Art Space and the river. The city has just spent so much time and effort on doing Levy Park and knowing what's going to happen at the Hudson Park with all of that being park too. Are we entertaining any interest in making that a park? If we're going to spend money on cleaning up the environmental problems that are there, I'd like to be able to say there's an economic development opportunity on the river.
Sure,
So that's my question.
Sure, I can address that. Yeah, there is a group that is looking to create a park. They've been looking specifically at that location. Melanie Mescoli and I met with them about 2 weeks ago, told them that the direction that we have and our intent for that property is to have that be developed for economic development purposes, that we want to be able to sell that property and to be able to have some sort of economic development generator on the property. We held out the possibility that perhaps, depending on who the tenant is, there might be space to accommodate if the tenant or the owner is receptive to it, or we have lots of space along the river, lots of parkland along the river that might accommodate this type of facility elsewhere. And so we have not made any commitments to them at this time.
Any questions? Any other questions? Then we're looking for a motion to adopt the resolution regarding levy.
So moved.
First. And second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? Item C.
Okay, item C. This is a review of our bylaws, administrative management practices, and financial assistance and business subsidy criteria. These are documents that were originally established upon the establishment of HEDRA back in 2009. So it's been almost 9 years since we've really opened these up to take a look at. What I try to do is look through those to see what things that we may or may not be doing, things that we might improve upon, and also have our legal staff and our new financial advisor review these documents as well. So I've highlighted some of the changes within the documents within here. I'll go through those a little bit here. We have our HEDRA bylaws themselves, which which establish some of the practices in which we follow as an organization. Some of the stuff is fairly simple with housekeeping. One of the things I did want to discuss tonight is we should be putting in there reflecting the current HEDRA meeting time and date, which is simple enough to do, but I also wanted to speak a little bit more with the group here to ensure that the meeting time and the meeting date that we have established now is the correct one. We've been meeting at 6:30, second Thursdays for quite some time. I think when HEDRA originally started, we had a 6 o'clock time, and then maybe 4 or 5 years ago, we switched it to 6:30. And so if that's the correct, if there's no issues with that time or date, we'll certainly continue to move forward with it, but I open that up for discussion if others feel differently.
I'll address this because I have kids in high school and soon to be middle school now and in activities. 6 o'clock would be great if everyone could be here by that time. I know it's difficult if people are working from other locations or need to travel, but it's difficult with accommodating just travel, dinner, attendance.
We've been there.
Yeah. So if you don't mind, now and again, I have to miss, but I'm just saying that's my input on it. It's
Sure.
just later into the evening it goes. It's kind of the 6 to 7 is a really good time, or right after work is a really good time if everyone is here in town. But I don't want to change it or I don't want to suggest we change it if that's been the norm and it works for everybody. So it's just my input.
Well, any time is fine for me. Whatever, 6, 6:30, 7.
I'm good with 6 or 6:30 also.
Not 7.
Not 7.
I mean, the later it gets into
Okay.
bedtime for our house, it's like more
Certainly.
difficult.
Madam Chair, I think it was part of when Tony was on it, and coming back from the cities, and Dana on
And
it,
Dan.
coming back from the Capitol. 6 o'clock would work fine with me if that would be more accommodating to your schedule. I have no problem moving it to 6, but
Anytime works for me.
My office is across the street. I can make a lunch hour work if anyone's up for it. We can, we can just bring our lunches in. I'm good. But realistically, I think it's, if we can start the earlier after the workday, the better for purposes of other obligations would be wonderful. And I wouldn't miss as many meetings or be
Right.
late or have to leave early. Thank you.
Would there be, sounds like what I'm hearing from the discussion here, that 6 o'clock would be acceptable, unless I hear anything? Okay, so what I'll do is we, starting with our next meeting in October, and I'll put it in big red letters there, that it'll be 6 PM. We'll do that. And so we'll change, we'll make that change. That's easy enough to do. The other item we have on here is reflective of when we're taking major financial action. I put in here a requirement of a majority of all HEDRA members, which would be 4 of 7, to take action on certain items. And these items have more of a financial significance. These would be items such as issuing business subsidies, issuance or forgiveness of any loan or debt over $20,000, authorization to sell property, or execute any contract expending more than $20,000 funding, or entering into a TIF district. So anything that requires a more substantial commitment, and frankly, the $20,000 is a figure that I put in there, and it has any real significance. But the point of it is that when we're looking at things that have more of a significance, where we really should have a majority of the entire HEDRA body present, or for a majority of the entire HEDRA body voting for that action, excuse me, in order to make that effective. As it sits right now, we need a quorum of 4 people to take action on a meeting, and well, let's say a quorum of 5 people, and then let's just say 3 people vote yes, 2 people vote no. We have 3 people, which is not a majority of HEDRA, and so that is my suggestion for change, and I open that up for any comments or discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John, I'm in favor of that, and I agree with the 20,000, or whatever the number is. I just remember a vote that we took here. I don't want to hold things up and make it delay it, but sometimes, like in the city council world, we have 2 hearings where we don't get to make a decision. Maybe it's got to be presented, and then the decision is on the next meeting. Maybe we need to put something there like that when it gets over a certain amount. I mean, we forgave quite a bit of money, and I just think it would have been better if we would have had time to talk about it, had more decisions, and understand what that decision meant. So I don't know how to frame that, but, and again, I don't want to delay things on potential people that need that funding, though. That's what I'm worried about.
Okay. So if I'm hearing you, Commissioner, that you're looking to have maybe 2 meetings of HEDRA on certain items for consideration, is that what the suggestion is?
Yeah, I think I'm looking more on, again, if we're giving a, maybe it's when it's forgiving loans, if that's what it is. Maybe that needs to say, no, we need to really talk about that and think about that versus on one meeting. Maybe that needs it.
And I think that the one thing that was unique about that one is, typically what'll happen is we'll have notice of that, we'll put it on the agenda, we'll be able to do a staff review of it, and you as members will have time to contemplate that decision. In that circumstance, it just kind of came up at the meeting, and I would certainly agree that if something like that was to come up in the future, we go, wait a second here. We want to be able to ensure that this is the right decision to make.
That's fair. That's what I'm looking for, is just say, if something does come up, say, no, it's got to be on an agenda so we can have staff review it first and then we get to review it, so.
Okay.
I don't know how we put that in there, but.
Yeah.
And maybe it doesn't happen that often. It's the first time it happens to me.
Sure.
one of 2 times that I've noticed it.
All right. I'll move along here. Administration and management practices. I don't know if there's really anything terribly significant about this. There is a requirement in there that that we report annually to the city council any changes to the enabling resolution. I don't think we've ever done that. I think it's still good that we check in with the council on any changes, but I took out the requirement to do it annually, that we would have, that changes would be reported to the council when desired. And maybe not when desired is correct, but when we do them, we'd report to the council on that. And then the other one is within our disbursements right now, the way it's written within our management practices is we have the city finance director as a signatory on disbursements. We've been doing it with just the treasurer only as a signatory. I spoke to our finance manager, and she's comfortable with that, so I'm going to make the change to reflect the practice that we've been doing related to that. And then the other one we have is financial assistance and business subsidy criteria. This is something that's required by the state of Minnesota if we're going to give out business subsidies. Now, business subsidies has a very definitive term under Minnesota state statutes. It's over $175,000 in benefit and under certain conditions. And so anytime that we do that, we have to report to the state, and we have to develop certain criteria that we follow. And so we had our financial advisor look at this more specifically. He was very comfortable with the language that we had in there. We are looking to delete the requirement to review wages annually and to set the wages to the minimum wage exclusive of benefits. What we had in the agreement at present is a definitive wage amount. I forgot what it was, $9 an hour, $10 an hour, something like that. When things change, that doesn't. And so we're putting in there payment of a minimum wage exclusive of benefits, and have that instead of a specific wage number within our business subsidy criteria. And that would be the only change that we would be looking at. So if you have any questions or comments, suggestions on anything else of these documents, we can discuss those at this time.
Madam Chair, John, I notice you say delete required for review of wages annually. So let's say ABC company is in the industrial park and they got 2 acres of land and they're going to create 20 jobs and a certain wage. They met our wage requirements. When they meet that at the end of 3 years or 5 years, we review the amount of wages they've paid, divided number of employees they have to see that they met everything. So we're saying that we would not review the wages annually, or just when we review and say, okay, you've met the criteria for receiving the land for $1 or $2 if it's 2 acres?
It's a very good question. I see where you're going on that one, and that was not, my intent in this is not to take out our review of wages that a company's paying when we have these subsidy agreement. My intent was to take out that we would review the wages that we set in our job and wage goals annually. And I'll make sure that that is being the case, because I don't want to eliminate that. I didn't think about that as a potential consequence of that. Okay. Right, yeah. Okay. All right. Well. Okay.
Till 7:30.
Okay. Okay.
So it looks like we're not looking for any action.
No, what I'll do, one of these, the financial assistance requires a public hearing, and so we'll have the public hearing at the October meeting and have adoption there with the final copy. Okay. Should I move on through? Okay. Hudson information here. One big thing has been done, that is SHPO is done with it right now. So it is on to the National Park Service for their review. They have 30 days. That expires on October 6th. So we're keeping our fingers crossed that we're down, I think, to about 3 issues on that one, and we want to have them get a conditional review so that conditional approval so that they can start on all the other items but for the ones they're reviewing, so that they can get the plan submitted by that December date. So that was a big thing to move past SHPO. On the parking ramp project, we've approved the plans at City Council. The building plans are in review right now to the building department. Demolition is scheduled for October 1st to begin, with the other parking ramp aspects of it starting soon after, probably late October, early November on that, and then working in the fall and over the winter, opening up in the spring on that. Economic Development Coordinator, we struck out twice, unfortunately. So upon review, we're putting together a request for proposal to contract services. So we'll have that out in the next week or two. And I've talked to some firms already that will be interested in applying for that. So I'm looking at having services for 1 or 2 years, and then we can reevaluate the situation at that point. It just the marketplace right now is just not very good. So we talked a little bit about the vacant land behind Art Space. I'm putting stuff together. We got our environmental reports back to allow us to apply for grants at the November 1st round for cleanup. And so we are doing that through October. And so we hope to have the cleanup funds in hand so we can start doing that in the spring. And then I'm looking at October. We have 2 parties, one of them being the cidery that you're aware of. Another party that was looking at that for some kind of a unique development in which it would be kind of almost like a extended stay, small little, I don't want to call homes, but detached hotel unit almost sort of a thing. It's kind of, yeah, it was showing me some concepts of this in other places, and it was like, well, this is kind of interesting. So it'd be kind of small, detached things that you'd rent out. So I'll have more information on that. I told both parties that I wanted to be able to review those here in October. So I think we'd be in a good position for us to be working with one party on a preliminary development agreement, which would mean for a period of time, we'd work exclusively with this party, working towards a purchase agreement at some time. So they'd have some confidence in spending money on the project, that they're the only person, and we knew that someone is working on it. So that's my hope to move forward here on that. And got land signs up in the park. Haven't had much reaction to that yet, but hopeful on it. And yeah, put some other development stuff within your packet, and that's probably about all I've got for updates.
Do you have anything further for John? Looking for a motion to adjourn. Do a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
See what happens here.
Beat the tornado.